Welcome back to Lineout Lab. My name is Peter O'Donnell. In this video, we're going to talk about sacking and a few tactical things that I think are really, really interesting to consider if you're going up against certain Maul attacks. So in this first clip, I want you to pay attention to the South African number 3 and the role that he plays. Scotland are going to win the ball at the back of the line out, and I want you to notice the urgency that he shows to get back and sack them all. So we'll play it through here. As I said, Scotland win the ball at the back, and just notice how quick he just makes a beeline and he's gone. Now it ends up being a penalty, and I think it looks like it was for tackling the man in the air. And initially, I thought it was because it was for sacking the Maul, which, you know, you're allowed to sack it in the initial attempt. But then I suppose a bit uncertain. Is he just pulled the jumper down? Has he got his timing wrong slightly, perhaps? So we can see he's got hands on the jumper a little bit early, so possibly just pulling the jumper down in that aspect. That's where possibly the Maul might have been, or the infringement might have been. But ultimately, I think it's really impressive work rate, regardless of the penalty. I think it's really impressive work rate, and just to recognise, okay, they've won the ball at the back. It's my job to get back and sack this. Yes, it does result in a penalty, but I think the idea and the urgency is really good. Now we see a similar example from Ulster here in defence. We see, notice, look, man in the middle. Munster are going to win the ball at the back of the line out, and I want you to keep an eye on the work rate to get around from Ulster. So we're going to look at this man here and notice how Ulster have competed. And so because they're competing, firstly, it's a really good ball by Munster. Because Ulster compete, these guys have to work extra hard if they're beaten in behind, which Munster do. They win the ball in behind the jumper, which if that happens at any stage in the ball, you're generally always going to be under pressure if a team are competing. And as you play it on, notice the role that he does to get around and sack. And he pulls the whole thing down. And even just the angle that he's at, I really admire this bit of work rate. Even the angle, like, that's actually a really good defense. Like, it's really like, I think that picture there, like, that's a really good defensive picture. It's an incredible take as well. I think that's a really good picture all around. I know the quality is a little bit poor on my part. Sorry about that. I think I might have screen recorded this. But you can see the sack effort is brilliant. He just gets into the seam really well between the front lifter and the jumper, and then just pulls it down. And it's a really excellent defensive effort all round, I think. Now, sometimes I think it's really important that jumpers, lifters I should say, have a bit more recognition of the pictures that are thrown at them. But when teams compete, a lot of teams are going to try and sack. So what the Crusaders actually do really well here is they go for the sack. And it's the work of the front lifter that actually makes this. They do a really good job here to disrupt this. So as we play it on here, the Crusaders compete, but notice how the front lifter gets his hands on and just pulls that down. So number red 4 competes they look to compete, and then he just gets hand on the jumper fraction early, you could say, but just pulls it down. But lifters, I think, need to be able to see that and spot that and try and go with that current and go with that pressure and try and absorb that hit. So I think it's good defence overall, though, I have to say. So similarly with this clip, the Blues are going to, they're wearing white today. The Auckland Blues are going to win the ball here in the middle front. And I want you to check out the role here and how they sack this, how quick they are to get in. So they compete, and look at the job of the back lifter there. He almost loses now. I would be careful with this at underage level in particular, just from a safety perspective. But if we look at the defence here, so the third man, the line out, they get up, but look at how he's recognised they've lost the ball already, and he's just let go of the jumper pretty much. Now, at this level, they've probably practiced this a bit, so there is an element of safety. There is an element of safety considered, of course. If there's any sort of danger, I'm sure he'd be thinking he'd be looking out for his buddy. But notice how quick he is to just get in, and he just pulls it down, and it's a really good bit of defensive work, I'd say. So fair play to the Reds in this example. Now, there are potential challenges you have to be conscious of as well. If you don't get that sack straight away, you're really going to be under pressure. Now, I would just say with this attacking clip, we're going to see La Rochelle win the ball here, and we'll just notice the two lifters, the two big boys. They are probably slightly ahead of the jumper and deny access, which makes it hard to get that initial sack. So it's probably lucky to get the penalty, I would say. But we can see that if you don't get that sack straight away, then you're definitely going to you could be under pressure from referees. So look at the Blues here. They go for the sack. They try and get in like he's close to him there, but the two lifters, I wouldn't even, look, if he wasn't going for the sack, it may not have been a penalty because he could probably have just hit, but because of where his body position is, it's harder. You can see here, because he's going for the sack, like the lifters there in this picture aren't like drastically in front of the jumper, but because of where he is and he's trying to get that sack, it's harder for him. They do a pretty good job to just stay strong. Because of those two lifters in particular, you're going to be doing well to sack that pod, I would say. But once he comes down, I don't think that it's that bad of a picture, to be honest with you, because of this here, because he's so upright. And I think the lifters have actually done quite a good job to try and prevent the sack here. But if he doesn't get it straight away, now you could argue that it is straight away. I've seen plenty of people who'd be happy enough with that. But if you don't, then you're going to be under pressure. And referee in this example is saying, look, it wasn't done straight away and it's a penalty for La Rochelle. So there's always that balancing act of the timing aspect. So thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.